Ladies and gents, Homer Reaction, and this is the Russian Revolution OverSimplified Part 2 by the channel OverSimplified. Yes, we saw the Part 1 yesterday, in that Tsar Nicholas basically came to power, where his father didn't even teach him anything, because he just sent him away to Japan. When he came back, it's just like, he thought he's a girl or something. But doesn't matter what he thought, he was in line for become a Tsar, I guess. So it was his duty to teach him things, but it didn't. So like he said, he didn't know anything better. So whatever preceded after that, all the way up until his death, some of them blames does go to his father, I guess. Because if he had taught him how to run country, maybe it would have been different. But then again, there were so many instances where, he had the chance to make sure there is no revolution, to ease the tensions. He didn't, right? Peaceful protests came to his way with priests in front, basically a religion, basically handling things. So by killing them, not just he showed that, okay, even the peaceful protest is not enough. He showed that even he's not going to respect any religious leader too. That was kind of a big deal there. So that was effed up. He just ran away. People like, okay, it was mishandling from his side, because he just put the soldiers there and ran away. He didn't tell anybody to attack. But it's like saying that there's a kid in my house, small toddler, and I just put mines everywhere. One toddler just stepped on one of the mines. Of course he was going to do that. You put the soldiers there and ran away. What do you think was going to happen? It was his fault. And then later on, he created this kind of a what was that? Dima, what that government was. He put the parliament there. But then as soon as his soldiers came back from the Japanese war, he's just like, fuck your parliament, and he mishandled lots of things, right? So in the end, revolution was inevitable. People like Lenin would have, I guess, would have rose anyway. But what's the effed up thing that's going to happen in this video is that his whole family is going to get slaughtered, the kids and everybody. That's just effed up by the Lenin and Soviets, basically. So yeah, let's do this one.
While Nicholas had been busy playing with his new best friend,
oh yeah,
in Europe,
also the Rasputin, right? I mean, that's just effed up. Already it's like, you can't be a royalty and not think about your image. I mean, that matters a lot. He should have known that, putting Rasputin so close to me and my family is causing bad image throughout the whole country.
Rising. It just so happened that in 1914, one Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary went for a drive with the top down in Sarajevo. One thing leads to another, and suddenly Russia found itself at war with half of Europe. A wave of patriotism swept through Russia. The capital was renamed to Petrograd because St.
Archduke of Austria, right? I mean, first assassination attempt, he survived. Then he's like, okay, I'm still gonna go around the place, but I'm still gonna do that in a convertible, basically, on top-down car, not that proper protected. I'll change the car or something. No, that's the car I'm gonna go again, because they're not going to attempt again.
Petersburg sounded a bit too German. Even revolutionaries were getting on board. To them, World War I was a big stinky imperialist war, but they didn't want their big stinky imperialist replaced by a foreign one. So pretty much everyone wanted Russia to win. I hope Russia loses. Geez, read the room, Lenin. Lenin hoped Russia would lose because that would help him overthrow the Tsar. As long as he did that, who cares if Germany blows up half the country? And blow up half the country, they did. An inefficient Tsarist
He's an
government
extremist
meant there
in
were
the
shortages of just about everything you need to fight a war. And if losing a teensy-weensy war with Japan upset the people, losing a giant Wyatt war like this was much worse. Soldiers were deserting, the economy was imploding, and in no time, Russia was starving. The peasants were getting more peasanty, the workers were getting more workery, all the while Germany was getting more Germanery. Dmitri, we need to win this war. I need someone with a great military mind to step in and take control. You're right. How about General Hickenlooper? How about me? You can't run the war. Who'll be in charge of the country while you're gone? Obviously, my German wife and a homeless wizard. Duh. Nicholas declared himself commander-in-chief and went to the front lines, leaving his German wife in charge while they were fighting the Germans. It wasn't a good look. And because Alexander was so close to Rasputin, people believed that he was actually calling the shots and secretly destroying Russia, and maybe even boinking her. An even worser look. At this point, a bunch of
Alright, so can Nicholas make more bad decisions? First of all, it's a fucking world war, right? It's a fighting from all sides. There are groups of people, allied forces, basically central powers. All of them are fighting, right? In that he thinks, okay, rather than sending a proper experienced general who could win war for us in Russia's side, no, I'm gonna go there because I have so much experience winning wars. So I'm the commander-in-chief now. That was so stupid.
nobles just couldn't take it anymore. Rasputin is destroying the country. We have to break his magic spell over the Tsar. But how? He's magic.
Oh, shit.
Dude, Very cool. Hey, it's Rasputin. The sexy party is running a little late, but in the meantime, why don't you try one of these totally not poisoned cakes? Dude, why'd you say it like that? He's totally gonna know they're poisoned now. Shut up. I said they're not poisoned. Dude, he just ate so much poison. How is he still alive? It must be the magic. Go with plan B. Is he dead? See, Boris? I told you he was the Antichrist and you didn't believe me. Can you shut up for 1 minute and help me roll him up? Are you sure he's dead? I don't know, but I'm supposed to be hosting a charity auction right now. Can we get this over with?
The fuck?
Okay, now he's dead. The murder of Rasputin, just like his life, is shrouded in mystery and speculation. He probably didn't really die like that, but he also probably didn't really heal people.
This is an oversimplified video, by the way. That was part of it. Okay, I think, let's rationalize that, right? I mean, how did he eat that much food? He ate all those food and didn't die if it was poison. Only thing I can think of, that whoever made that food, right? They told somebody to make that lots of food like that. So that guy's probably like, I don't want to mess with Rasputin, his magic and all. He could curse me. So I'm not going to put poison in. So I think that food was not poison, because whoever made it probably feed Rasputin, right? That's the only thing I can think of. Then when it comes to guns, maybe they shot him in panic. Maybe it didn't hit the right places and he didn't die. He was still bleeding out. So and then they put inside the carpet and throw it in the river, and that's probably what did it. If it happened like that, that's the rationale I can think of.
People. He probably didn't influence the Tsar as much as people thought. He probably wasn't secretly destroying the country. But what he definitely did do...
Oh, he definitely didn't influence Nicholas, right? Nicholas just, had him around because of his kid. That's it. And like, okay, fine, stay in my castle, right? People just assumed things. Like, people just amped things up. Oh, they're literally eating dinner together. They are best friends forever. Rasputin is the one who's making all decisions. They just amped it up from there. It makes sense in that sense.
His death was ruin the Tsar's reputation. Russia's autocracy looked more outdated than ever, and the Russian people were taking notice. Come on, men. Remember what we're fighting for. Yeah, no. We're out. World War I left Russia broke, hungry, and exhausted. And with Nicholas acting as commander-in-chief, he was getting even more blame. For the second time, Russia was on the brink of revolution. By 1917, Russia had been fighting a war it couldn't afford for 3 years. They were running out of many things, most worryingly, food. On International Women's Day, 1917, thousands of hungry women in Petrograd were so sick of being hungry that they took to the streets. And it turns out it's not just women who experience hunger, but men too. So the next day they joined in as well. Gatherings on the streets were forbidden, but I'm not sure how you'd arrest 250,000 people. The crowds demanded an end to the war, an end to food rationing, and even an end to the Tsar's autocracy. Now, normally the troops would deal with this kind of thing, but as it turns out, soldiers get hungry too, and they were also tired of having to kill their fellow Russians so much.
Yeah.
So entire regiments mutinied in the capital, and they joined the crowd as well, trashing symbols of the Tsar.
See, the thing is, in the previous centuries, basically, whenever any army took up arms against their own civilians, it's usually, preceded with how the king is literally at the hand of God or something. So by doing whatever king wants, even if it means shooting your own fellow civilians, yeah, right, your own neighbors, that means you're just doing God's job or whatever. Because in the previous century, things always went like, whoever king is basically, it's like God's right hand or something. They always, went with the God, right? So nobody questions whatever questionable orders, kings give. So that's why in the previous century, whenever you hear about, like, there was a massive, rebellion, and, king's guard and army basically killed all of them. It's because of that, because they thought they're doing God's job or whatever. In here, obviously, people are going to think, okay, these are my people, right? These are literally, one of them is my cousin, right? So the soldiers would think that, like, okay, I'm a soldier, but I am one of them. Why would I kill all those people, right? Fuck the Tsar. That's what would happen. And also they were hungry.
Regime. Things were escalating very quickly. Liberal politicians watching the riots in the streets had long been dissatisfied with the Tsar, since he would shut their parliament down anytime they did something he didn't like. They believed the only way to bring stability back to the streets was for Nicholas II to abdicate. The riots continued. The police fired on soldiers. Soldiers fired on soldiers. The workers re-established the Petrograd Soviet. Politicians began arresting the Tsar's ministers. He may have been an autocrat, but he just lost complete control of his capital city. Talk about embarrassing. Nicholas, the troops have turned against us. The people have taken over the city. They've even cut my phone line. Hello? Hello? The phones are down. Things must be bad. I'd better go back there. Nicholas hopped on the next train back to Petrograd, but he never made it to the city. His train was met by military generals and other politicians. What's going on? Nicholas, look man, we need to talk. It's not you, it's us. Who am I kidding? No, it's definitely you. During the whole crisis in Petrograd, the liberals convinced the generals that if Nicholas abdicated, the people would calm down, and the generals were on board. They didn't have time to quell the chaos, because don't forget, they were still losing a global, all-encompassing war against the Germans. And with the military no longer on his side, Nicholas had no choice but to step down. Throughout his entire reign, he had done everything he could to keep all the power for himself. And in the end, that's exactly what left him with none. But then there was a big question. Who would replace Nicholas? Well,
to me, Nicholas was confused because he didn't know how to run the country, right? Because at first he was acting like a czar, partying and everything, right? While everybody was suffering. Then when a war comes, he's like, okay, I'm gonna be in the front lines. That's really, that doesn't feel similar, right? Anybody instead of him who are the previous czars, so they would be like, okay, I'll send some general. Why would I go to front line and suffer? I'm just gonna do parties here. So it was really mixed. Like first he's like, okay, I'm czar, I'm supposed to do parties. So he did that. He's like, okay, I'm going to make a name for myself so people respect me. So he went to the basically front lines. It was really mixed response because he didn't know what to do because his father didn't teach him anything.
Well, his son Alexei was next in line. Hey buddy, Daddy couldn't handle the complex socioeconomic problems of a giant multinational, multi-ethnic empire that's engaged in total war with all of Europe. You think you could give it a shot? Alexei just wasn't ready to be Tsar. Nicholas did have a brother, but given the state of the empire, he wasn't keen either. And so, 300 years of Romanov rule in Russia just kind of came to an end. The earlier 1905 revolution hadn't changed much, but this new revolution had left Russia without a Tsar. And still, before the year was over, there would be one more revolution left to come. Nicholas's failure as commander of the armed forces was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Do you think maybe you could have done any better? Well, guess what? It's time to find out. In Rise of Kingdoms. Rise of Kingdoms is an epic, massive multiplayer, free-to-play, real-time strategy game. Choose from 11 historical civilizations, including Rome, China, or France. You can form alliances with other players, or conquer the crap out of them in real-time strategic battles. Oh look, it's Master Tactician and Handsome General Alexander the Great. If you want my advice, the troop is the most important chess piece in a battle. In Rise of Kingdoms, each troop can be controlled. To win a battle, you need to utilize careful positioning through unique troop formations, while using terrain to your advantage. I literally won the Battle of Gaugamela with fewer troops by using superior strategy. You're wrong. Joan of Arc? That's right, noob. Listen up. I'm about to drop some knowledge. The commander's skill is way more important. Each Rise of Kingdoms commander has their own unique skill. Look at me. I've added attack and defense buffs to my troops. Whoa. I'm also able to cure my wounded soldiers. Cool. And I can increase their wood gathering speed by 10%. Not as cool, but okay. In Rise of Kingdoms, the decision is yours. Now go ahead, choose your favorite real historical figure and lead your troops into real-time battle. Download Rise of Kingdoms now for free by clicking on the link in the description below. Join me and 50 million other online players and guide your civilization from a lowly clan into a great empire. Now where was I? Oh yeah, hungry woman, absolute chaos, and the end of the Tsar. Oh, hey guys, says here there's been a revolution, and the reign of the Tsars has ended. Oh, come on, I missed another one? Why am I even in this video? Well, it's not like you could have done anything. As long as there's a world war, you can't get back to Russia. Who wants to start a revolution? Dang it! Despite getting rid of Nick, Russia was still at war with half of Europe. The Germans, however, had an idea. They thought that if they helped Lenin get back, he would cause trouble for the new Russian government. So they put him on a train. Destination, Petrograd. It was a long journey, and while Lenin was cooped up in his train, things in Russia were changing. Workers were taking control of their factories. Soldiers were socking it to their mean old officers. Without a czar, a big old power vacuum had opened up, and someone needed to fill it. The liberals proposed they be in charge, and they set up the provisional government. The workers, however, had already begun establishing local Soviets, largely controlled by the social revolutionaries and the Mensheviks. And since neither felt like they had the power to oust the other, Russia ended up in a classic dual power conundrum. The two coexisted, with the provisional government becoming the official government and the elected Soviets issuing orders to the workers and soldiers. This power balance was delicate, and all it would take is one bold revolutionary to come along and give everyone a big-brained beatdown. Oh boy, Lenin's coming home. I can't wait for him to see all the great things we've accomplished. And I'm gonna show him my fan art. Oh look, here he comes now. Shut up, shut up! You all suck! The provisional government sucks, the Soviet sucks, even your fan art sucks! Why does he have to be so mean? In case you couldn't tell, Lenin wasn't a fan of everything that had been happening. In his April theses, he called the provisional government and the Soviets a bunch of big bourgeois bozos. And he kinda had a point. There was still a lot for the Russian people to be mad about. The provisional government hadn't got Russia out of the war, the people were still hungry, and the peasants were still hoping to get more land. Meanwhile, the Soviets hadn't done much to change things either.
Okay. Obviously, Lenin is extremist, right? That's all of his views are. He was okay with Russia losing and even getting destroyed somewhat by World War if it means Tsars basically abdicating. So he's a proper extremist. This is what I'm thinking. If Lenin was not around and his extreme ideas was not around, how would Soviet Union be? How would that ideas would have gone? How would communism be? Right? Because the extreme communism that we know of probably started with Lenin, right? So that's what I wonder. Like, no Lenin, probably, maybe Stalin would have rose up anyway, but let's just imagine no Lenin, no Stalin, and the idea would have still floated, right? Like, power to the people, like communism type of, how communism would have been. It would have been a bit of light communism than we know of, like how strong it get.
Either. But even though they weren't perfect, a lot of people did like what the new government had been doing. There was progress. The secret police were disbanded, the death penalty abolished. They even planned to hold elections, meaning for the first time ever, the Russian people could choose their own government. To many, Lenin seemed like some out-of-touch weirdo. If Lenin wanted to go from whiny irrelevant zero to a hunky communist hero, he'd need to shake things up a bit. So he and the Bolsheviks came up with a hot new slogan that promised to give the people what the provisional government wouldn't. Peace. Don't like war? We'll end it. Land. You want land? We'll give it to you. Bread. Hungry? Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Lenin also called for all power to the Soviets, which meant getting rid of the provisional government and having the Soviets run the place. A communist dream. The people liked these slogans, and bit by bit, the Bolsheviks became more popular. Some Mensheviks even began switching sides. But even though the people thought Lenin's slogans rocked, as long as the provisional government didn't mess up, they'd continue to support it. So let's check in on the provisional government. Oh, provisional government, you've made a big mess. The provisional government lasted for just 9 months, but those 9 months were chaos. The people wanted Russia out of World War I, but Minister of War Alexander Kerensky thought instead of doing that, why not do the exact opposite? If the people saw more Russian victories, they'd have to support the new government, and that went just about as well as you might expect. These heavy defeats worsened the Russian economy and made
See, provisional government should follow what people want rather than trying to act just like how Tsar did, do whatever the hell they want. People wanted to be out of the war, while they're like, okay, maybe what if we win? They might change their views. Just do what people want, man.
The hungry people hungrier. And by now, I think you know what comes next. They trashed the place. More looting, more rioting, more violence. It was like the Tsar had never abdicated. Tens of thousands of armed workers took to the streets during some of the worst violence Petrograd had seen yet. And in response, Kerensky called in the troops, who opened fire on the demonstrators. For now, Lenin and other Bolshevik leaders wanted to distance themselves from the violence, but the crowds marched under Bolshevik slogans, and as a result, Kerensky, now the prime minister, took the opportunity to stamp down on the Bolsheviks. Their leaders were arrested, Lenin was accused of being a German agent, and he was forced to flee to Finland in disguise. This sucks! Now I'll never get to have my revolution! Why are you wearing a dress? It's a disguise, idiot! And it makes me feel pretty. Kerensky had successfully dealt with the violence, but he just couldn't catch a break. This increasing support for more extreme forms of socialism, along with the poor handling of the war, alarmed traditional liberals and bougie business boys. To appease them, Kerensky decided to promote a military legend to Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, someone who hated the revolution, loved the death penalty, and was devoutly anti-socialist, General Kornilov. Hey man, thanks for the promotion. That was real swell of you. Of course, with you by my side, who would dare try to overthrow me? How about me? I did not see this coming. Unfortunately for Kerensky, Kornilov hated the liberal and socialist reforms of the new government, particularly the dumb socialist soldiers' committees. The army was no place for undisciplined left-wing snowflakes. Fearing a Bolshevik takeover was imminent, Kornilov ordered his men towards...
See, that's the thing. Whenever some politician is in power of parliament, like prime minister or something, but he's not beloved by the people and he doesn't have full-on support of the people, you try to put somebody in power of basically make a military leader somewhere, right? That military leader is a military leader. He'll probably just see that prime minister is not popular, right? If I remove him, nobody's going to do shit because, where does his power come from? If people doesn't like him, why does he have power to begin with? So at that time, government overthrow happens. So anytime somebody puts some powerful military leader in charge of army, right? They must look at like, am I beloved by my people or not? If not, then this might be a problem.
Petrograd to oust the Soviet and take over. Kerensky freaked out and he needed help. Since he knew Trotsky was finger-licking good at organizing, he and other Bolshevik leaders were released, and they, along with the Soviet, organized the defense of Petrograd. Kornilov had the power of soldiers, but the Soviet had the power of workers. And they did what workers do best. Railroad workers diverted Kornilov's men away. Telegraph workers messed with his communications. They even infiltrated his forces and encouraged the demoralized men to desert. They were also armed en masse, but in the end, no fighting was necessary because Kornilov's coup just fell apart, and Kornilov was sent straight to prison. Everything was coming up Kerensky. Hey, thanks for the help, boys. Couldn't have done it without you. Now that there's no longer any threat, how about you, return all those guns I gave you?
How about no?
No. Oh, no. In order to kill a rat, Kerensky had just given a gun to a bear. A Bolshevik bear. The whole affair was a huge propaganda win for them. They had defended the revolution, and their popularity skyrocketed. They found themselves elected to the Petrograd and Moscow Soviets, with Trotsky even becoming chairman in Petrograd. They were now in a very powerful position. Almost powerful enough for Lenin to return home from Finland and finally stage his long-awaited communist revolution. The Bolsheviks began planning their takeover of the Russian government.
Stalin.
Some got cold feet and began arguing against Lenin's armed revolution in favor of a more peaceful approach. And they even wrote newspaper articles about it, which kind of gave the whole scheme away. The Bolsheviks are planning an armed revolution? I did not see this coming. Kerensky began arresting Bolsheviks, and as a result, Lenin and the boys felt they had no choice.
That was a bit weird, man, right? Why would you give away you're staging some kind of revolution in paper?
But to commence the revolution right now. Lenin was back in Petrograd, but was still in hiding, so Trotsky got the ball rolling, using his position as Soviet chairman to organize the Bolshevik militias. Now, if you were to ask Soviet artists, the revolution went something like this. As much as they would like you to think it was a glorious, violent, heroic takeover, the truth seems to be a little more underwhelming. The Bolsheviks just kind of walked into key buildings in the city and took control. Bolshevik supporting sailors even brought in a huge battleship, but there was
That's like Eric Cartman diplomacy right there. I guess so see one of the South Park episode where Eric Cartman does that. Just walks inside and take down the flags and take the buildings like this is mine now.
wasn't really any fighting. Nobody really tried to stop them. In just one day, they took control of the city. Next, Kerensky just managed to escape before the Bolsheviks surrounded the Winter Palace, placing the provisional government under siege inside. Is it safe to come out yet? I think so. Fear my revolutionary might! Give me that. That night, Lenin came out of hiding to play a bigger role in the revolution. With him back at the helm, they had one more job to do: storm the Winter Palace and arrest the provisional government. And here comes
He's dancing in the background.
The palace was defended by a force known as the Battalion of Death, who immediately gave up. And just like that, Lenin had won. As far as violent, bloody revolutionary uprisings go, this wasn't really one of them. But Lenin was finally in charge of Russia. He had spent his whole life dreaming of this moment. He set up the first Council of People's Commissars, his own cabinet, with him in charge. This was it, his chance to finally make his communist utopia with equality and freedoms beyond compare. Hey Lenin, before we took power, they were planning on holding elections. Shall we go ahead with those? Of course. You can't have a communist utopia without high levels of political participation. The proletariat should be free to elect who it. What? The social revolutionaries won. We lost. Those don't count. Lenin claimed the elections were unfair, and the Constituent Assembly they created was counter-revolutionary. He presented the new assembly with a motion that basically said, sign here and give up your power. And when the assembly was like, no, Lenin said, see, they're disobeying me. Proof they're counter-revolutionary. Shut it down, boys. Moderate socialists and others weren't happy when Lenin had the assembly closed by force, and when campaigners began taking to the streets, they were fired upon. For Lenin, setting up a communist utopia was looking suspiciously like setting up a dictatorship. While he was implementing many of the communist policies you'd expect, he was also refusing to work with other political parties and cracking down on opposition.
It is a communist utopia, but only if you listen to me. That was Lenin's idea, basically.
Hey Lenin, are you setting up a dictatorship? I'll shoot you if you are. Of course not. What a crazy theory. Anyway, I'm pleased to announce I'm setting up a secret police force to repress and kill traitors. And by traitors, I of course mean anyone not loyal to me. Owie, 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 owie. The assassination attempt made on Lenin's life in August 1918 failed, but in response, the Bolsheviks ramped up their oppression. But while all of this chaos was erupting back home, Lenin and the boys were also distracted by another problem. They were still at war with the Germans, and they had promised to give the people peace. So Lenin made Trotsky Commissar for Foreign Affairs and sent him off to negotiate a peace deal with the Germans. The Germans offered Trotsky really harsh terms, because they were winning the war. They demanded Russia give up a butt-ton of land, something that would be devastating to the economy. Look, I know it's not great, but I think we have to accept it. Are you insane? This will ruin us. Hey Trotsky, you got a big brain. What do you think? How about no war, no peace? What's that, Mr. Trotsky, sir? It's simple. No war means we'll stop fighting the Germans, but no peace means we won't sign the peace treaty either. Then, when the Germans see we've just stopped fighting, they'll have to leave us alone or something. Trotsky, that's genius. I could kiss you.
Yeah, but if they're not fighting, wouldn't Germans just step inside and take the land they wanted anyway? By force?
Do you want me to kiss you? Stop asking me that. Trotsky's no war, no peace plan was a huge success. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. It went exactly as you'd imagine. When the Germans saw the Russians had stopped fighting, they slammed 700,000 troops deep into Russian territory with no resistance. Now, the new peace treaty offered by the Germans was way worse, with Russia losing a huge amount of territory, population, and resources. The Bolsheviks had no choice but to accept, and Russia was humiliated. With Petrograd now in an exposed position, Lenin moved the capital to Moscow, just in case. Things really weren't going well for Lenin, and many people were extremely unhappy with the Bolshevik government and its actions. Lenin, you've pissed off so many people that they've united against you. We're under attack. Relax, we always expected some counter-revolutionary pushback. I think we can handle a few angry monopoly men. But Lenin, it's not just the monopoly men. Okay, who are we up against? Well, the liberals, the social revolutionaries, national separatists in Poland, Finland, and the Ukraine, independent warlords setting up chiefdoms, anarchist rebels, the Green Peasant armies, the Cossacks, the Caucasian states, the Baltic states, the British, the French, the Americans, and the Japanese. Oh, and a legion of Czechoslovakian soldiers seem to have taken over the Trans-Siberian Railway and stolen all the imperial gold reserves. What? How could this get any worse? Oh, and it says here your mother-in-law is coming to stay. No! A variety of anti-Bolshevik forces had united together to topple Lenin's government, and Russia descended into a full-blown...
I mean, that was pretty stupid of Trotsky to, basically give up fighting like that. If they hadn't given up, maybe people would have been pissed. But just losing all the land and population, that probably did it, right? That probably put the pressure point way higher.
Civil War. Now, the Russian Civil War was extremely intricate and would really need its own video, but essentially, the anti-Bolshevik white movement gained control of vast, underdeveloped areas, while the Bolshevik Reds controlled the industrial heartland. Using this to their advantage, along with the surprising military genius of Trotsky and the shocking disorganization of the White Army, the fortified Red Army gradually came out on top. It was an absolutely brutal conflict, with both sides committing horrendous atrocities. To maintain order at home, the Bolsheviks began the Red Terror, and the secret police would execute tens of thousands of suspected traitors. No one was safe from the violence, not even Nicholas himself. You've probably been wondering what Nicholas has been up to this whole time. Well, after his abdication, he and his family were placed under house arrest. At first, they were allowed to live in their usual luxury, but after Lenin took over, their conditions worsened. The Bolsheviks were just holding on to Nick until they could work out what to do with him, but the Civil War complicated things. The last thing they wanted was for Nick to be freed by the White Armies. And so, to stop this from happening, Nicholas's Bolshevik guards decided to act. It's not entirely certain whether Lenin ordered it, or if the guards were acting on their own volition. But on July 7th,
the way Lenin acted so far, definitely Lenin ordered it.
17th, 1918, with White Armies approaching, they woke Nicholas and his family in the middle of the night and brought them into the basement. There, a drunken squad of Bolsheviks murdered the entire family. Nicholas, the last Tsar, once one of the most powerful men alive.
See, what the fucked up thing about that is, Nicholas probably brought all this shit, onto him, right? I understand that part. But the kids, what the hell, man? Kids don't know anything better, right? At least they should have left kids alone. Maybe they thought that if anybody left alive, they could grow up and basically try to become Tsar or something. But still, that's just effed up, man. Killing all the kids, damn.
Had met a brutal end. But after years of fighting and millions of deaths, Trotsky and his Red Army came out victorious. Wow, that was a close one. Okay, back to creating a communist utopia. How are we doing on that? Well, the Civil War helped create a massive famine and about 5 million people starved to death. There's massive inflation and the ruble is worthless. Hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of railway track have been destroyed. Disease and epidemics have killed 3 million. The population of Moscow and Petrograd has collapsed. Life expectancy has plummeted. Sailors in Kronstadt are rebelling. People are freezing to death in their own apartments and life has been reduced to a constant search for food and shelter. Whoa. Well, this just means I'll have to work twice as hard, day and night, to save the country. Nothing will stop me, short of a couple of sudden strokes.
Oh, okay.
Get the doctor. One thing you have to keep in mind is that everything I've been talking about, the Civil War, the assassination attempt, and Lenin's struggle to maintain control at home, were all happening around the same time, and it must have been extremely stressful. Lenin began getting headaches, insomnia, and in 1922, he suffered 2 separate strokes. As the Soviet Union was officially declared under a strict one-party system, Lenin's health continued to decline, and his ability to lead the Communist Party went with it. Everybody assumed Trotsky would succeed him. He was a great speaker, he'd won the Civil War, and he had a dope-ass train. The last person anyone expected to take over was Stalin. Stalin wasn't a great intellectual like Lenin, or a charismatic war hero like Trotsky. He was, as one Menshevik described him, a gray blur. Someone who operated in the background.
See, I wondered in this scene why I was in background though. But damn, seriously. If Stalin from this position can rise to power, and we know how effed up he was, right? As certain aspects, he was even worse than Hitler. He was anybody he just thinks, oh, he could be trying to stab me in the back. But he's been your friend your whole life, right? He's one of the trusted men. No, but I think he could stab me in the back. Let's just kill him. He kills him and, paints all the photos that he has with him. It was photoshopping before Photoshop was even a thing. Was painting and using artists to paint things over. That was just next level shit.
Someone who you might not even notice, but it was in the background that Stalin would rise to power. Here's how it happened. After the revolution, all the Bolsheviks hoped to get a cool job in the new government. What did you get? Commissar for war. Sweet! What'd you get? Secretary. Stalin was made general secretary for the Communist Party. It wasn't what he wanted, but Stalin quickly realized that even though it wasn't fancy, it was a powerful position. As secretary, he had the power to give people jobs within the party. So he would give jobs to all of his pals, who in turn would give him their support. The more pals he gave jobs, the more power he got. The more power he got, the more pals he got. Lenin may have been having wall-to-wall strokes, but he was still involved in the party, and he was taking notice. He wasn't a fan of Stalin abusing his position, or insulting his wife to her face. Lenin knew he couldn't let Stalin take over, but by this stage, he was just too sick to fight it. Hey man, tell whoever's in charge of giving people jobs not to let that jerk Stalin become the next leader. By the way, who did I put in charge of giving people jobs? That would be Stalin, sir. Bleh. Whoa. Deja vu. Lenin's last wish was to not let Stalin take over.
Wait a minute, what was that in World War II video? I think that was, right?
When he died, Stalin was too powerful to remove. He had his remaining opponents arrested or killed. Trotsky was banished and fled to Europe. Eventually, he would be assassinated by Soviet spies in 1940. Our dear comrade Lenin has died. We should have a state funeral. No. Let's mummify him and put him on display so people can look at his dead body forever. That's gross. You're gross. Guards? Kill him. Lenin had waited so long to take control in Russia, but he never got to see his communist utopia. His short time in charge was spent dealing with the destroyed Russian economy, World War I, and the Civil War. He was cruel and merciless, but he really did seem to believe communism would make Russia a better place. Stalin, on the other hand, would take the Soviet Union down a different path. If you thought Lenin was a tyrant, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, girl.
Seriously.
A secret police state, a rapidly militarizing superpower led by a paranoid man who deeply distrusted the West, would see the world come to the brink of nuclear annihilation. That's right, I'm talking about...
Damn.
Remember to click the link in the description below.
Yeah, Stalin was just next level shit, right? He's the level of effed up he was. Seriously, Lenin probably believed in his communist ideas, but his extreme ways was just no. I always wonder if Stalin wasn't there, if Lenin wasn't there, how communism would have looked like, right? Because in the core of communism is always like power to the people. But it went way too extreme and people in power just became a dictator. So if Lenin, Stalin wasn't around, how would it have looked? I always wonder that. Alright people, that was the Russian Revolution by the OverSimplified. It was a great video, both of them. I like how OverSimplified is making longer videos now, going in more detail. It's fun. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. Comment down if you want to react to any other video, I guess, from any channel. Check out the reaction, there's the link in the description. Check out the cast or different playlists like OverSimplified with all my OverSimplified reaction, Only Sarcastic Proxon, History, Internet Historian, CGP Grey. And yeah, I'll see you next time.